Exactly 17 minutes to the top of the hour. You're right in time for our first conversation of the day. We train our focus on looking at sustainable engineering in the era of climate change. Of course, taking cognizant of what happened yesterday in Season Kasarani constituency where a building collapsed. And we obviously have our very own Farah who's there. And the moment we link up with him, he'll be giving us details of what is unfolding from that particular place. Moreover, my guest in studio will be helping us converse about that and so much more. To my extreme left, that is Engineer Erastus Mwongera, who is the Chairman, Engineers Board of Kenya. And right next to him is Engineer Nathaniel Matalanga, who is the immediate past President, Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. We'll look at the sustainable engineering, the era of climate change, and we'll obviously talk about the convention. But let's just begin from what happened yesterday. Of course, we'll get more details the minute we get linked with our very own reporter, Farah. But just going by what happened yesterday in Seasons Kasarani, a building collapsing midway construction. This is not the first time this is happening. Why does this normally happen, Engineer Erastus? Let me start with you on that one.
Thank you very much. First, let me regret the incident and pray that those who are trapped in will be rescued safe. It's unfortunate that buildings in this country, particularly in urban areas, continue collapsing. This is because the engineering practice being applied is not sound. A building going to 7 floors should have a very strong foundation. It should have columns and beams that support different floors. And it should even have a lift, which will have a lift shaft, again strengthening that building. We haven't gotten the details of this building because it happened yesterday. This morning, there's a team of Institution of Engineers of Kenya, Engineers Board of Kenya, and NCA who are visiting the site. And I believe they will be able to assess precisely what is happening. But we suspect the proper engineering structural designs were not done, and therefore the building gave way because of its own self-weight.
I hear you. I mean, proper structural designs were not done. Engineer Nathaniel, I want to get your account on this one because just slightly 2 months back, we also witnessed a similar incident in Kirigiti, Kiambu County. And actually, assessment indicates that this particular process was supposed to be halted, but somehow the construction went on. But before I get your account on that one, as we are working on your camera there, let me just pick up with you again, Engineer Erastus, on this one. This have been continuous stories or incidences we've witnessed. In fact, also there was a time in Eastlands, Huruma area, whereby there were buildings that had been earmarked that they were supposed to be demolished because of how hazardous they were going to be in the future. So then, what really happens from the onset that we don't really pinpoint these issues so that we end up losing lives, losing property due to these collapses?
As I said, a building should be anchored on very strong foundation.
Okay.
To address this problem, the board early this year constituted a team of structural experts, very senior, renowned engineers in this country, to carry out a structural assessment throughout this country on pilot basis. They came up with the reports. And some of the highlights that are contained in that report is these buildings are not properly designed. They are also not supervised by professional engineers. And the other thing is they are not approved by competent authority at the various levels of approval. We have since come up with a report and presented to the government. It is being addressed. We hope from this report certain laws, acts of parliament will be amended to give professionalism to the building industry. For example, when you go to county governments today, those who approve structural drawings are not engineers. They are not even graduate engineers. Anybody can approve there, and that is the main problem, because they are not able to check then drawing, they are not able to check the calculations that the engineer used to come up with a certain size of a column or a beam. And the other thing is we are also encouraging county governments to employ qualified professionals, engineers, who are registered by the board and who are also members of the institution, so that they can do this work with authority. But the main cause of this, these collapses is lack of sound designs, and the secondary, lack of effective supervision.
Okay, lack of sound designs, lack of reflective supervisions. But again, Engineer Nathaniel, on this one, issue of assessment, approvals, professionalism, is this then our biggest impediment? And this, even as you respond, you know, being full aware of also what happened 2 months ago, because just as I said, this assessment has been done, that the process was supposed to be halted. So then what happens that somehow you have realized that, yes, you're doing a construction, something has been realized midway, so then you are told to stop, but at some point the contractor still continues. Is it a question of assessing, professionalism, policies? What really is the problem?
Thank you very much, Doreen, for having me.
Yeah.
Let me also join the chairman by regretting these incidents that keep happening in our country.
Yes.
A building should not collapse at all if we followed the laws are there. You know, most of us, when you are young, as boys in the village, we build our Simba, and the Simba never collapsed. So how come at an advanced level, where we are dealing with now big buildings?
Engineer, one who say a Simba is just like a room over here.
Yes, but it is the same principles.
Okay.
It is a structure.
Right.
And if it became bigger, you saw maybe your great-grandparents had a post in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
That was supposed to ensure the roof doesn't come down.
Okay.
So those designs have been taken on. The major reason why buildings are collapsing, and we have regulatory enforcement agencies. We know we have the National Construction Authority, we have the county governments that are supposed to provide enforcement, so that when buildings are being done or structures are being done, they are done properly and they should not collapse. You realize that a building or a bridge can only collapse at the construction stage. It means that it is not proper. As you go up, as you put load on it, it collapses. So you can say maybe on the inside, it's even better that it collapses during construction, because it was going to collapse now. If it didn't collapse during, it will have collapsed eventually, and maybe when the building is occupied. So the main reason why buildings collapse, as the chairman has said, is lack of appreciation that a building is like a manufacturing entity. So you need to have some quality assurance standards. You need to ensure that the materials that are used, starting from the construction of the foundation, and the only way you get the size of these materials is to have the structure designed. In Kenya, the law is very clear that for you to do engineering work, you need to be on the register of the Engineers Board of Kenya. And that register is available to the public. EBK has a website where it publishes their registered professionals. Every year, they actually gazette these professionals in a special gazette notice. What has happened, and every time it's unfortunate that we hear a building has collapsed. The clarion call, NCA has been there and it has marked it. In this latest collapse, the NCA have said they have been there several times and said issued stop notices. Why are the stop notices not being enforced? Because you and I know corruption. The guy goes behind, and the county government, in every sub-county, in every area where the construction is happening, they have an official there. You try in your house just to cut a fence, your worker will be arrested, because they will tell him you cannot even cut this external fence without permission. You cannot even cut a tree in your compound without permission. They come and arrest you. But at that level, of course, you don't bribe them, so you stop cutting that tree, then you go and get permission. In these cases of collapsing buildings, enforcement agencies have been there. They issue stop notices. For some reason, these stop notices are not enforced. Those people are bribed, work continues. Until another collapse happens, then we talk about it. So unfortunately, this regulatory authority, starting with the National Construction Authority, the county government enforcement agencies, unfortunately, as chairman has said, the law was changed some years back. Construction control, development control used to be enforced under what we know was the city engineers department, now county engineers department. So the laws should be changed that this process, this particular function, should revert to the county government, to the county engineers department. Because it's only the engineer who knows how the materials will look like. Then you'll be able to go there and say, has this building been designed by a professional engineer? Where are the drawings that you are using for construction? At the moment, this role, for some reason, for some strange reasons, was moved to the county planners department. Planners don't know anything about construction.
They're not engineers.
They're not engineers. They don't appreciate the consequences of a collapse. So when they go to the site and they are bribed, of course they are able to look the wrong way and the construction continues. Then another collapse happens. If this role, the law should be changed that construction, development control should revert back to the county engineer's office, and all the 47 counties should have this office properly resourced or with the professional engineers registered by the board and members of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. If that were to happen, then we shall stop seeing buildings collapsing. The other thing is that these departments, in addition to creating them, they should be properly resourced with professionals, with the means like vehicles to move around and carry out their policing role that they are supposed to provide.
Okay.
This development control, planning approval is expensive. You know, when you go to the county government, you want your building approved, you pay money. So this money should not be used to pay salaries for other people. It should remain in that department to ensure that we stamp our authority and we stop the process of building collapse. From where we sit as the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, if this were to happen, you will stop hearing of the building collapsing in this country.
If we're engaged more.
If this process were to happen, that this role reverts to the county engineers in every county, then you will not hear of a building collapsing. There will be few maybe, but you'll be able to trace them. What's happening now, the building is collapsing, the developer is greedy to continue his construction, so he bribes these planners who go around to carry out the enforcement role. When they look the other way, as I said earlier, they don't know the consequences, how the materials should look like. So they let the construction continue. NCA is supposed to, once they issue their stop notice, it's supposed to copy that stop notice to the Engineers Board of Kenya, to the police, so that the police is mobilized. But what happens? Everyone looks the other way, and then NCA goes, oh, we were there, this particular collapse, we saw cracks. Yesterday in the morning, you could see the columns that the developer, who we have been told was not even using a registered contractor and a registered engineer, was telling his workers to go plaster it.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you.
Yes,
I hear you.
Thank you.
And I want to pick it up with you on this issue of from the top leadership. But before I get to do that, Engineer Erastus, I just want you to sort of like chime in on that one, particularly when it comes to developers, because it's so much to say about engineers and contractors. But also on the other side of the coin, do we also have this poor problem emanating from developers, whereby one would think it's really quite expensive to engage services of an engineer, services of a contractor for approval. So then let me just use any dubious ways, because at the end of the day, I want to develop this building for my own benefit and gain. Do developers also have a big role to play in this one?
Yes, thank you very much. That's a very important question. We all know that cheap is very expensive. And what is happening with the developers, they think they are saving money, but they are losing money. If that building of yesterday, for example, the developer wanted to use 20 million for sake of argument, and is using dubious people, you hear the contractor is not registered, there is no engineer, and so on, then the whole 20 million goes down, or 18 million, or whatever the figure. But if this developer decided to use a qualified structural engineer, out of 20 million, maybe you pay 15% consultancy fee of that amount. So you get a building of 20 million where 18 million will go into construction, 2 million will go into supervision. And the building will stand. We are also blaming the bankers because they give loans based on maybe title and so on. We're encouraging them to check and see that these buildings have really been properly designed and stamped. And the way to do this, the board has put mechanism for engineers even to prove themselves. For example, every engineer is supposed to have engineer's card, like mine here, which you carry. If I tell you I'm an engineer and you tell me prove, I'll produce this can from my pocket. I can use it to borrow money in the bank and so on, and show whoever want to engage services of an engineer, every professional engineer.
And I can also see Engineer Nathaniel removing his.
Yes.
Quite important.
Just to prove, yes.
To prove, yeah. Secondly, every engineer, professional engineer and above, has been given an engineer's stamp.
Okay.
This is a stamp unique to yourself, just like any other stamp. But when you press it, it then gives you a name. It then gives you a category, like I'm a consulting engineer. It will say Engineer Erastus Mwongera, consulting engineer, number F1973. That is my number at MBK. I mean at the institution, and E133 at
the board.
At the board. So that is again another identification. We have also come up with the engineers' scale of fees, which are supposed to guide the developers on what to pay an engineer, because again, you don't want free services. You want to invest and get quality of your work. If you look at some of the buildings that were done properly, some 20, 30 years ago, they are flats, they are occupied, and they are sound, no crack, because the developers used engineering practice. So we are encouraging them not to go cheap, just to apply professionalism. Let them look for engineers. If they don't know them, let them come to the board. We shall give them qualified engineers. And also bankers, when they are approving these loans, let them ensure that those buildings will stand when they are built.
Yes, I mean, you've just said it, and this has really refreshed my memory. It's so difficult to witness a building that was done even 50 years ago collapse. This was done 5 years ago, 2 years ago, currently being done, that are collapsing. So it really looks like there's quite a lot of loopholes that we need to be sealing, if at all we need to be moving in the right direction.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is true. The people have relaxed, as my colleague here said. Laws even at the county level and so on have been changed. Institutional arrangement of approval have been diluted. And these are things we are saying they should go back to be done properly. That report I talked about has mentioned all these things, that they should be done properly. Then we save the investment, we save the lives of people, and we save our environment.
Yeah, I hear you. And of course, we'll come to the convention momentarily.
Yeah,
I mean, we have good ample time to discuss that. But then before we get to do that, I want to come to this issue of leadership, Engineer Nathaniel. This is simply because we have also had concerns over time emanating from different quarters that who we are placing at the top leadership, even in terms of governance, has also become a challenge. You just mentioned, like the PS who's supposed to be vetted in this particular docket. Really, there's lack of that understanding, not even an engineer themselves. So then this cascades down to the bottom end. What more do we need to do from that particular angle, so then that these positions do not really become positions of awarding loyalists or political friends, but let's get professionals to some of these very key and important positions?
Yes, thank you very much, Doreen, for that question. It's one of the issues that is affecting the industry, is lack of appreciation, as we have said, of professionalism from the lower level of implementation to the highest level. Look at the, we don't have a problem with it, but look at the recently appointed cabinet. We engineers wonder who advises the country when it comes to matters of infrastructure in a cabinet meeting. Because the practice of engineering is unique, just like law or medicine. If you don't have someone who appreciates that role, how do you get that information firsthand? Someone you can trust, someone you can rely on. It means that whoever is giving it has gotten it from another person. We are very lucky this time round, actually, that in the Ministry of Infrastructure, and we are hoping it goes through, the person who has been appointed for the first time is now an engineer. He's registered by the board, he's a member of the institution. So we are hoping it goes through. So at that level, we shall be able to engage with him and ensure that he's able to guide the cabinet secretary in a proper way. But there are so many other professional dockets in engineering that are not headed by engineers. You realize last year we really had to lobby Parliament when they wanted to remove the need of you being an engineer to be the head of the road agencies like Kenha, Kera, Kura. But there are so many other organizations which are infrastructure dockets, like Geothermal Development Authority, we have Ketraco, we have Kengen. This actually, the top leadership, they perform engineering functions. So we're expecting that the proper legislation should be put in place. And we're willing to advise Parliament, we are willing to advise MPs and the Senate to guide them that the country will only move forward in a sustainable way if we are able to appreciate professionalism. There is no day in this country that the CJ will not be a lawyer. That we seem to appreciate. The registrar of the High Court.
It's actually true.
We seem to appreciate. But now when you talk about the head of KETRACO, we don't seem to appreciate that this is an engineering role, and that person can only be an engineer. And then what you talked about, even away from the government, the national government, whom we are saying that please appreciate and appoint an engineer to the cabinet. We are lucky among the PSCs, there are some engineering nominees who will give this country direction. But now we come to governors, county governors. The governors appoint CECs, and you can see that the CEC in charge of infrastructure, the CEC in charge of water, the CEC in charge of public works. You realize that sometimes these people are not engineers, and therefore they're not able to oversee a docket to deliver a service to the people.
All right.
So we are willing and ready to advise the top leadership from the national government to the county governments to please embrace professionalism. It's the only way that this country will move forward in a sustainable way. Otherwise, what we are doing, the guy who was developing the building that collapsed, there's nothing sustainable about him now. He lost everything.
You can imagine.
And he took us back.
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
thank you.
I hear you. I just want us to take a very quick breather. Of course, when we come back now, we look at the convention and these sustainable ways that now we can employ moving forward. Time for that breather. We circle back with plenty more of this conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program, and we obviously appreciate your valued company. We continue our pace with our conversation, still tackling issues of sustainable engineering in the era of climate change, still holding court with my guest. To my extreme left is Engineer Erastus Mwongera, Chairman, Engineers Board of Kenya, and right next to him is Engineer Nathaniel Matalanga, immediate past President, Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Let's just continue this conversation, and I want you to finish up on that particular point when it comes to top leadership and having people who are professional in that regard, so then it cascades down to the bottom end before we get to Engineer Erastus on the scene.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doreen, and good morning, Kenya, again, once again. You know, what we were discussing is where did we get it wrong?
Yeah.
It seems that something happened and we went away from the right path. You know, as a civil servant, when someone finishes university or training as college and you get employed, your dream is to exit at the top. And the top position is a PS. So I think it is not proper that we suddenly dismiss all the career civil servants who have worked their way up because they are good in their job, they are good in that docket, and therefore they are able to get the leadership. We talked about the CJ, for example. It is not possible just to go and assume you are a CJ unless you have been a lawyer, you have worked in government, Attorney General's office. You cannot pick a journalist as a CJ. You've worked in the AG's office, a state council and everything. Then that person at some stage becomes the CJ. So we are saying in all professional dockets, we need to nurture the talent, capacity building, so that when someone is appointed the PS, he's up to the task. And therefore you'll not be able to get in the Ministry of Infrastructure someone willing to take that institution forward, who has the institutional memory, experience, training, who is not an engineer. So that's where we got it wrong. The greed to reward a campaign funders or people who have helped you to win an election should not stop you from losing direction. We know that the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto has a heavy dose of infrastructure development. And for this to be realized, for this country to get value for money, we need professionals to be at the helm. You saw the CS releasing to you journalists the dossier on SGR. How many of you understood it?
We need
Yeah, so
professionals to explain
exactly.
to
But
us.
engineers, we have always known this information. We unfortunately lacked the avenue to share it and ensure that it's implemented. We
Wait a
really,
minute. So what looked like something new to the country? You were privy to this.
of course, we knew because we saw the construction of the SGR.
Right.
We also saw the construction of the expressway.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with those projects. Very good for this country. They're moving the country forward. Our main challenge was how are they being implemented without involvement of the locals, because we need to build capacity of local contractors. We need to build capacity of local engineers so that they are able to do another project, and even they are supposed to maintain these projects. So when you go into a public-private partnership and bring in private partner who does not involve the locals in the project, then what you are seeing will easily happen. You remember we queried the expressway.
Yeah.
We said, it's a very good project, but please explain to us how it is being done, at what cost. Is that the best? The expressway is finished. We're all very happy we are using it. It is improved mobility on that road. SGR also was finished. It improved mobility. But we are saying it could have been slightly better if the professionals, the government then involved our members. And we are now 10,000 of us. So we are willing to give directions. Training of an engineer in this country is very expensive. So it is sad that we invest money in the training of an engineer, take him through university, and these are the A students. These are top-notch. They are in there. Most of people, you know, when the results come out of primary school and secondary school, people will say, I want to be an engineer.
Yes.
Yeah, so you take that person who has very high ambition, spend a lot of money on him, training him as an engineer, and then now you don't give him a job. You want him to go and start operating matatus as his fellow classmates who never managed to go to university. So we need to nurture this talent and ensure that all graduates from our universities, and every year we are producing 1,500 of them. It's a very of engineers. It's a small number if you look at the population of the country. We should be able to provide jobs for all these people to be able to take this country forward. We at the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, we're now also participating at an international level. I'm a member of the Executive Council of World Federation of Engineering Organizations. And at that level, we've lobbied our international partners to accept to mentor the Engineers Board of Kenya to try to sign up the Washington Accord. When that happens, the board will be able to assure the world that whatever is happening in our engineering education, in our engineering practice is up to international standards. So our engineers should be able to do the SGR and expressway. Yeah, we don't need someone coming to do it for us. We just need to be told and get that confidence that, yes, I was involved, therefore I can do the next project. This is the way we did it. That experience and capacity building is very important for this country. And therefore we are willing to support the government. We are willing to support the national, the county governments to ensure that whatever their dreams, the governors' manifestos, most of them had heavy doors on infrastructure development. So we need to support them to ensure that those probably who was doing the first term don't end up single-term governors. We want to help them go for a second term. We would like also to help the president deliver the Kwanzaa manifesto in this country, which is very good. If we're able even just to do 30% of it, Kenya will prosper. And we have it will be at a different level. The former president did a very good job. You know that on infrastructure. We know that most of the regional countries, they come here to study the Kenyan model, the expressway especially. So he did very well, and we support that here. And we are willing to move this country in a sustainable way. We don't want to see an investor who has put his money in a private project, just a building. 10 stories. We have KICC, which was done in 1970.
And it's still very
It has never collapsed. The laws were followed. Why do you want to change the law? Why do you want to fix something which is not broken? So let's go back to the basics. Appreciate. The board has actually saved the developer. They have given the developer the guidance on how much fees he can pay a professional engineer. So the engineer, if you go with those scales, the developer knows how much you should. You cannot say, oh, you want to rip him. But if you now want to go and pay someone cheaper than what the board is recommending, of course you are going to be ripped. yourself by losing the whole of your investment, like happened yesterday.
I hear you. And you've mentioned something which we'll pick up perhaps almost at the tail end. This is the issue of local human resource. Why? Because it's also a matter that the CS Road talked about, particularly when he was being vetted, how we can perhaps incorporate that. But before we get to that, Chairman, I also want to get your account on this one, because we have talked about, and we can keep saying this over time, back then they were called permanent secretaries, and this was the highest level of civil servants, simply because they were well experienced, vast with knowledge. So when you put them at the helm, then it becomes easier to even cascade down that kind of knowledge and experience to the bottom leadership. So then what more can we do to sort of like change and shift that structure? Because then it looks like sometimes the problem actually emanates from the top leadership before you even look at what is happening at the downscale.
Thank you, Sophia. First, let me take this opportunity to thank His Excellency the President for nominating 2 engineers at the level of Principal Secretary. There is Engineer Mbugwa, as my colleague has mentioned, in the State Department of Roads, and there is Engineer John Tanui in the State Department of ICT. We wish the President could have given more, so that all the state departments that are heavily engineering could be ended by engineers. But of course, he's appointing authority. He has the right to do what he has done. But we are grateful we have 2. But when you look back in our government setup, before it expanded so much, we had 6 arms of government. We had the health, where the head was Director of Medical Services. We had the finance, where the head was Financial Secretary. We had the education, where the head was Director of Education. We had agriculture, where the head was Director of Agriculture. We had Foreign Service, where the head was the top diplomat, and the infrastructure, where the head was Engineer-in-Chief, as the title was. Now, this Engineer-in-Chief title has expanded because the engineering activities were under one. We have now energy on its own, still purely engineering. We have water, purely still engineering. And we have the roads, we have the transport, and so on. And what we are saying, these rockets, because they still remain engineering, if they could be ended by professional engineers, then this will give accountability, this will give proper direction, and this will support the cabinet secretaries to deliver their mandate very, very effectively and efficiently. In fact, I remember those engineers who served late Mbugwa, Lord bless his soul in peace. We have Peter Wambura, we had Sharawe in the Ministry of Roads. I was also there in the Ministry of Roads and Public Works. We had Engineer Kute in the same ministry. And so many of us who have served in that kind of capacity, because you become accountable not only to your employing authority, but to your profession. Because I cannot afford to mess up and mess my career, because the act is very clear on the discipline that will be taken on an engineer when he works without the professional ethics and the conduct.
Well said, well said. Now, on this issue of local resources, how we can incorporate local resources. In fact, it's a matter that really was proffered so much so during the vetting, because it looks like to be an ongoing problem. And the latest, perhaps, project we have seen is the expressway, even the SGR, when the Chinese came, they came with their local human, their human resource, at that time. And it was towards the tail end where they were employing our very own local resources. You just talked about 1,500 engineers annually graduating. This is really quite a small number for them to be absorbed, such that we don't see a good number of them being absorbed. What can we do to sort of believe in our very own, so much so that even if we will employ services from outside, we don't do this at the expense of our own?
Thank you very much, Doreen. As an engineer, we believe we can do it.
You believe in yourselves.
We believe in ourselves, we are properly trained, and we even have just said we are now looking to have international recognition. We are not going to start again and go back to school. We are saying this is how we were trained, and we are up to the international standard. The first university in Kenya was the Royal College, University of Nairobi. Before they became the Royal College, it was a college of it was like an arm of the University College London, to ensure that the degree you are given before the Royal College got international recognition, the degree you are given, it's okay. So that process is happening, and then any university that is offering an engineering program is supposed to be accredited by the board, EBK, to ensure that the program you are offering is up to our standard. And that the EBK will be able to assure the rest of the world that whatever programs are happening under my jurisdiction, they are these ones, that they are up to international standards, then we move on. So all universities, there should be no university offering a program that doesn't have this accreditation by the board. So we believe in ourselves, we know we are doing the right thing. The challenge, as I said earlier, is that the leadership don't seem to appreciate this, and therefore they don't give us an opportunity. The expressway, from the conceptualization to the design, we are saying local engineers should have been involved.
From the onset? From
the onset. The project, how it's happening. You can see that during the construction of Express, you're not an engineer, but we engineers see things that are being done as if they were not part of the original design. Yeah. The change is done, it rains, and then you see pipes being put running all over the place.
There is an issue that we don't have the exit to CBD.
Exactly.
Just coming out later.
In fact, it is supposed to be expressway to town. So if it's expressway that doesn't alight you in town, it should have been like a bypass. And why do you want to do a bypass on top of Uhuru Highway? You should have enriched the northern, the eastern bypasses, spend that money creating bypasses. Yes. But this was need that people arriving at the airport need to be quickly brought into town, which is the commercial center. And therefore we need to have a ramp, an exit ramp, where people are coming and they exit into town. And it is possible. The local people saw it, but we followed it up and we were told, oh, it was taking a lot of Uhuru Park, and therefore it was deleted. Last time we were assured by the government they're looking into it and they're going to provide that ramp to have an entry and exit from town, so that it is expressway to town, not expressway to Westlands. We have already the bypasses. So and I said we are about 10,000 of us at the moment. We have proper training. Those who are lucky to get jobs are properly inducted. They go through professional capacity building, and they are able to offer these services. All we are saying, give us a chance. Don't go to an engineer to advise you. Don't go to an engineer to build your building. When your car is broken down, I'm sure you don't just stop on the road and every guy you open the bonnet. You want to maybe call a friend and say, who does your car? So for us,
professional.
Yes, for engineering professional, that reference where you call, the point of call is the Engineers Board of Kenya. Google their website, and then they have made it very easy. When you want to employ an engineer, on that website, if you are, for example, John Joroge, you go and say John. They will search and give you all the people who are Johns. Or you say John Joroge, if that's the name, that John Joroge will come up. His speciality is listed. You know, like the other challenge that you may make also is that if you are an electrical engineer, then you should not do civil engineering work.
It's well cut out.
It's well cut out. If you are a civil engineer, I should not start doing mechanical engineering work. And the board looks into that. So we are properly trained. Sometimes you misuse the word in engineer. You say, oh, the developer was an engineer. Probably was a mechanical engineer. What has collapsed is a structure.
Yes, and you keep saying it was the engineer.
It was the engineer. Or some people, unfortunately, use the term engineer. You know, the usage of the term engineer in this country is protected. You can only say engineer so-and-so if you are on the register of EBK. That's why the chairman showed you that you have to have that identity card, that you are an engineer. And anyone who tells you is an engineer, you ask them for that card. And as I said earlier, the board has actually moved further, and we protected the government, protected the private developer by telling them, these are the fees for these services. You can only negotiate from here. The lawyers have the Advocates Remuneration Act. The doctors have their own.
That's another thing also.
So even the engineers we have, so the developers should not fear to employ an engineer because they have been
expedited prices.
No, they have been given guidance.
And if you feel the engineer is not giving you the service you have a right to write a complaint to the board, and the board will take action and ensure that the services which they have described in that contract, you need to go to the site, check the state of the foundation, the state of the soil, and then you design a building for that particular. The building in Kiambu on a red soil plot should not be the same building in
Just
Syokimau.
hold it there. Just hold it there. Seems like I keep cutting you short every time we are about to take a break, but we'll come to elucidate much on that particular point. We are due for another break, and also what you are seeing there, those are live pictures from Seasons Kasarani area. Of course, the moment we link up with our reporter Farah there, he'll be priming us on the very latest from that particular end. But let's just take that quick breather. We circle back with plenty more on this conversation.